Welcome, everybody, to the iHouse here in Davos. My name is Nicole Büttner. I'm one of the initiators, board member of Merantix, and also the co-founder and CEO of Merantix Momentum. We're a tech-enabled service company in the AI space, helping people achieve impact with AI. I'm really honored and humbled to have all of you here, and I would say we did this session because we noticed that actually in 2024, when you read people's LinkedIn pages, everybody turned into an AI champion. So I'm assuming this topic is done, right? You're all at full peak impact, fully scaled. So we're just exchanging notes and success stories here. So I would say this is a really important panel because that's at the end what we want to do with this technology, really achieve impact. And I'm deeply honored to have on stage. I need to read this because you're all way too accomplished. We try to look a little bit also what's the sort of this value chain of AI. So we have different players in the field with us. Let me start with Martin. He's the president and CEO of Cohere. Before Cohere, I'm from Karlsruhe. We're like he speaks Schwäbisch in German, fun fact, which I would have never thought. I'm from a similar region, so we can exchange in a weird dialect and ask you if you can train a model on this.
So I will not understand.
Before Cohere, Martin was the CFO at YouTube, overseeing global strategy, finance, business operations, and analytics functions. During his tenure, YouTube achieved 29.2 billion in revenue,
40.
2 billion, 40.
Yeah, 29.2 in advertising and another 10 in subscriptions.
Okay, we need to update your bio. With 2 billion users across nearly 100 countries and 2 million creators earning income. Prior to YouTube, Martin held leadership roles at consulting firms, including the Boston Consulting Group and Oliver Wyman, where he specialized in technology, media, and telecoms. But I also know you were at Google. So welcome, Martin. Thank you for being here. Jürgen Müller, I think we could probably also train a language model on your dialect, but it's not Badisch. So you're a member of the executive board of SAP, leading the technology and innovation board area. As CTO, you oversee SAP's platform and technology development. And in addition, you're responsible for innovation efforts related to SAP Business Technology Platform, new technologies, as well as global security and compliance. Not a small job, so thank you very much for joining us here at AI
Thanks
House.
for having me.
And finally, Behzadi is the VP of Engineering at AI, for AI and Cloud and Conversational AI at Google. He's renowned for his expertise in web search, ranking, natural language understanding, and speech recognition. You have been instrumental in co-founding Google Assistant, Google Lens, Google Smart Display. Your current focus is on sort of revolutioning the customer experience and enterprise operations through advanced AI technologies. And prior to your AI work, you led core web search ranking teams at Google. And you hold a PhD in bioinformatics from École Polytechnique in Paris. And conducted postdoctoral research at the Max Planck Institute for Molecular Genetics. So very accomplished, and I think you've lived in Zurich long enough, you should also be able to speak a German dialect, so this maybe unifies us all here on stage.
I think the audience would not understand.
That's the excuse now. So I would love for you, so we're going to do about 20 minutes question and answers here. You think about those key impact questions you want to have because you're going to have the opportunity to ask them the questions. Very briefly, could you maybe, and Martin, I'm going to ask you to start, could you maybe summarize for the audience what is it you do at Cohere and how you're helping clients achieve impact with AI?
I'll try. I think as Mark Twain said, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter, so I'll try and keep it compact if I can. So at Cohere, we're an enterprise AI company, only enterprise. We train our own foundational large language models for enterprise and help enterprises deploy them. Our CEO and co-founder, who you probably should have had here because he's actually the smart one, Aidan Gomez, also an ex-Googler. He was on the team that invented the transformer, so the T in GPT. Wrote the attention paper at Google Brain, and then left with one of his co-founders, Nick Frost, who was Professor Geoffrey Hinton's first hire at Google Brain in his lab in Toronto, to bring this kind of technology to every developer, every enterprise. I mean, Google, I'm still a large shareholder, for me, not for Sundar, in Google, is going to do an incredible job of bringing this to the masses, building it into Google Workspace, into search, into YouTube content recommendations, and everything. Our intention is to help every developer and enterprise access this kind of technology to build into what they do. So there are probably, I'll say, three things that we like people to take away in terms of what differentiates us. One is that we design on day zero for deploying at massive scale in production. And so we think about our model architecture in terms of how far you can push the capabilities within the constraints that enterprises will have in 6, 12 months to actually be able to afford to deploy this. If you have a 2 trillion parameter model, like one of the ones that someone may mention with a 4 in it, it is literally impossible to roll that out into production. It's just order of magnitude too expensive. So we think about those, how to be very, very efficient and have a combination, a balance of performance and TCO, total cost of ownership. Secondly, we are independent. We have not taken a large check from any cloud provider in exchange for promising to use their cloud. We are on every single cloud platform. We're cloud agnostic, so we're on Google. Vertex AI will be up shortly on Google. We're on Amazon Bedrock, SageMaker. We power Oracle's OCI's GenAI service. It's powered by Cohere. And it was announced by Scott, the head of Azure, that we will be up on Azure as the only proprietary model provider next to OpenAI, managed as a service by Microsoft. They asked us to do that because of the problems many of their customers had in going into production with big models, for example, from OpenAI, because they're just not financially viable. Unfortunately, that was announced on Thursday at Ignite, and then Friday was Samgate. So it kind of got lost in that big weekend that we all remember with all these interesting things going on at OpenAI. But we're very excited. And then we also do private deployments on VPC on all of them, all the way to on-prem. We have some on-prem deployments where we deploy our container of models, pipelines, fine-tuning, inference, et cetera, on bare metal of our customers. For example, governments, financial institutions, where data privacy and security are extremely important. So our mantra is we bring our models to your data. We do not ask enterprises to ship their data to our models. The third thing, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, is we really focus on search and discovery. We are objectively the best company in the world at search and discovery through embeddings. Actually, another German, Nils Reimers, who any MLE in here would know, holds all the de facto standards in semantic search. Now does that at Cohere across 109 languages. And then retrieval augmented generation, something I'm sure many have heard of. The chap who coined that phrase, Patrick Lewis, when he was at Meta, he's now with us leading our efforts there. So we believe that having an intelligent LLM that doesn't try and memorize everything, like you're going on Jeopardy and you have to memorize every fact you may be asked, but rather is extremely intelligent to be able to know when and where and how to look for information that it was not trained on, retrieve that, especially from very sensitive internal sources in your data environment, generate a response with citations of where every element came from, so you know that they're right. That is the way that enterprises will deploy this, not saying we need a 1.8 trillion parameter, 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 5 trillion parameter model, which is like, it's like a Bugatti when what you need is a Ford delivery van.
So would you then say the LLM providers are the Bugattis and you're the Ford?
No, some LLMs, if you go for a test drive and you do 2023 was the year of the POC. 2024 will be the year of going into production, going into deployment at scale. And so if a board of directors says, what the heck are you guys doing? And they do a POC and they go and take the board for a test drive in a Bugatti and everyone's excited because, oh, it's so fast. Then they say, now roll this out to all of our financial analysts, all of our customer service reps, whatever. And you realize, A, well, we can't afford that. They're $1.5 million each. And B, it has 2 seats, no trunk, and if you dent it, it's out of commission for a year.
Would you say that's a fair representation of what you're doing, Behshad? No.
No, I didn't say that's what they're doing. I'm saying if you look at some of the bigger, I mean, I think even Gemini's got a big model. The one that's in production is the middle-sized one because it's just not going to be affordable. But I think some of the things, if you look at, this is public. If you look at how Microsoft talks about what they're doing, even they aren't putting GPT-4 into production. They've been training and launching their own much smaller models that are able to, not tiny, but still just, you think about what the total cost of ownership is. I think this year you're going to see a lot more executives thinking about, okay, that was a nice demo we did for the board. How do we now make this usable by 5,000 of our frontline employees in a way that we can actually afford.
Understood. I just wanted to start this off as a little spicy immediately. I like the car analogy. So, in this analogy, right, or maybe not this, but maybe Behshad, you can explain, as obviously a company building some of these LLMs, how do you think about impact and bringing this to clients, especially since you also have models of different sizes and flavors? How would you put this in relationship with what Martin
so first of all, I think whatever Martin said looks actually what I and my teams are also doing. So we at Vertex AI platform at Google Cloud, our mission is also to make our customers, enterprises, and our customers, the developers, to be able to use our models and the toolings, all the toolings which is around it, and build Gen AI applications. The other internal mission that we have is that to make sure that the best and greatest of Google, which is used for the first-party products such as BART itself, is available at the same time to our enterprise customers. To give an example, our speech model, the best speech models, when we launched them last year at Google I/O, the very same day this was available to our cloud customers. Gemini model, Gemini Ultra, which is our biggest model, is right now available to some fraction of our customers. Which is exactly the same time as BART, and our internal customers our internal products are using it. So I actually liked a lot what you said, because yes, I think 2023 was a year which there was lots of POCs being built. Lots of the work that we actually do is about how to go from a POC to actually production quality and production ready types of environment. I wrote a paper, it's internal at Google, but the title is it's not all about LLMs, because it's LLMs is really part of that, important part of the brain. But if something works, something important works 80% of the time, quite often you cannot just deploy that. If you cannot decide to if there's a compliance aspect in a conversation which needs to be respected, you have to always respect those things. So the certain business logic needs to be respected, not 95% of the time, 100% of the time. And of course comes everything with privacy, what happens to the data, where data is allowed to go, comes things such as control, debuggability, improvability, what happens if you deploy something and there's one bad example, how exactly you're going to fix it, because you might not always be able to go to all those rounds of tuning and so on. So I think I think that I agree that that we're going this period of through this period of time where we have been seeing slowly in certain areas at least examples of use cases which are getting out, which are being proving to be useful. To talk about maybe a couple of more important ones. Customer experience, even pre-Gen AI revolution, was an area which was a proven area for AI to bring value. We are helping some of the biggest call centers in the world, covering 50% of their calls to be fully automated, handled by a voice agent or their chatbots to be handled automatically, taking care of lots of very similar types of services that they would like to get, and Gen AI just helped those types of deployments to become much faster, and the quality of those things to go above. So I would say that category we already have useful very interesting set of deployment. The other thing which changed really was what the barrier entry is. So a year and a half ago, when I talked to a company, it often it's lots of hesitations about, okay, is AI really good for us, or is Google trying to trick us? How long? What does it take? And quite often they need to actually spend lots of money until before getting any value. So it's the time to value is quite big. These days, these POCs can be tried in one day. Really, it's super fast. I had the Orange, the telco in France leadership visiting us in Zurich, where my office is, and we talked about a series of use cases. They decided that the technical support on their website is the one that they want to go live with. So from that very, very first contact until the moment that they had this on their website, it took 3 weeks, and this was answering like 9,000 questions every day from day one, beating, what they have been. So these are, like...
But now you're making it sound very easy, right? Now everybody in this room is asking themselves, what are we doing wrong? In the sense, no? I mean, and it's great, and you're touching already on, I think, an important topic. You're cutting a little bit into the discussion of what's impact and how are you measuring it, right? You were saying 50% basically of calls that you can handle fully automized, right? That's a huge value you're realizing. Let me introduce Jürgen into the conversation. And how do you? I mean, you're a tech builder, but you're also a really big corporate. So I imagine you're kind of a client and a builder at the same time. Can you explain a little bit what you're doing, and also maybe how are you thinking about impact?
Yeah, happy to. We work with Google, we work with Cohere, and I step back a little bit because here probably you will have a lot of AI expertise. Maybe you don't know SAP so well. So why do companies come to SAP? They come to SAP to organize their business processes end to end. So to make it easier to understand, lead to cash. So now apparently we have a potential Bugatti customer if you don't have one yet. So if you were Bugatti here and someone would be listening, okay, that might be a lead. So and from that point, if first point of contact to maybe there's then more advertisement personalized for you and opportunities in the system to you buying that car, for example. Then the other side is procurement. If you are a manufacturing company, let's stay with that. You want to produce a new electric car, you need to buy certain materials, and the chassis and tires and batteries and so on. So you need to procure. On the other side, you need people to do all of that. So from hiring someone to people retiring and everything in between, like, for example, payments and benefits and vacations and all of that needs to be managed. And then the last one is design to operate. So really that Bugatti, you first have a design of it, and then you digitize that. You need to organize the production and manufacturing process. And then, of course, it is also the supply chain around that. And then warehousing, maybe Bugatti is not so much, but if you think about retail, you of course have warehousing, you need to distribute things until they are in our homes, and oftentimes they are today intelligent. So the Bugatti sends telemetry data such that you can do, for example, predictive maintenance scenarios. And the cool thing at SAP, I didn't know that when I started, is that we do that actually for 25 different industries. So it keeps to be very interesting. So one is, for example, discrete manufacturing. You produce individual things like cars. Another one is continuous manufacturing, like the chemical industry, for example. Then you have healthcare, hospitals, you have pharma, you have retail, you have higher education, like universities. I see Professor Kretschmer here using SAP, but also you have governments and aerospace and defense companies. So very, very diverse. But in the end, it's more or less these end-to-end processes why companies come to SAP. And now impact, and why do we care about AI and now Gen AI? So of course, they want to have those in the best way possible. And you can imagine then in the areas of finance, or you mentioned customer experience, or we do have a technology platform, our business technology platform, because you need to integrate SAP with others. Most customers I interact with, they have a low 4-digit number of applications, different applications they use. And SAP is one or a couple of applications of that, but very important ones, because these processes, they are really key to mid-size. 80% of our customers are mid-size and large companies. So you need to integrate SAP with others. Data, the same. Most data oftentimes is outside of SAP, but some of the most important data is inside SAP. And then we make it easy, for example, with Cohere, also Google, to combine data sets, SAP and non-SAP data. And of course, now companies look at all these business processes, and now they think about, okay, how and where can we use AI, Gen AI, to make things better?
So do you, I mean, since you have so many customers in so many sectors, what is your sense? You have probably a pretty good sense of where industry is out there in sort of capturing AI. Would you say we're at hype stage or impact stage? Do you have a...
I would still say a hype stage
stage?
and preparation stage,
Yep.
because a lot of that you will have some use cases everywhere. We have like a dozen or so Gen AI cases in production, but oftentimes customers also struggle with data preparation. Do we have the right data sets? Maybe they need to be labeled, because in the past we didn't think about that we need data in a certain form such that it can be used easily, and then in a couple of days you can actually create models and so on. So therefore, while it will have a huge impact, still we have like 130 narrow AI use cases live, a dozen or so Gen AI use cases, and it will be hundreds. So that's why we also need tools like what Cohere is building, infrastructure and tooling that Google is providing, because there will be hundreds and thousands of these kind of Gen AI use cases.
Okay. I think you're making everybody feel... When I heard Behshad and you said, hey, it only takes basically a day to do this and then 1 month to get it live, right? Then you might think... I was just going to ask you, why do you think not every company is doing this? What is one of the challenges?
I mean, that was the beginning of a longer sentence. So I said there are examples that have been proven that actually has been working in certain types of topics. For example, depending on what types of customer experience you have, this can be very fast. I think internal productivity is also some area which people are getting. For example, coding assistant at Google. Many coders are already using this coding assistant. It's proven. It helps. Many companies I'm aware of that they're using it. So, but on the other hand, yes, lots of things can go wrong. Lots of things needs a much longer time of.
And what are those things? So if it doesn't take a day and a month, and maybe, I don't know, I've also seen a lot of corporates say, I've seen rarely those where it's so fast. What is it that takes so long?
I think I would say 2, 3 of them. But so one is actually quite often we get excited and about a hype about something which is even not the right product potentially. The definition of product itself. Many companies, nearly every company in the world now is making chatbots, right? But if you put a chatbot on a website, maybe I can ask here in this audience, raise your hand if you go on a website, you see a chatbot in that corner, and you like to talk to that chatbot. You're biased, you're selling that, so.
That's the Bugatti website.
So I have to say,
look, Marriott Bonvoy has got a great.
No, I have to say, so there are actually, we work with a company, I don't name it, but they made a super fancy smart chatbot out there, which is actually better than their website. But when people go to use that chatbot, they try to do super keywordy query. They don't use it as those complex tasks that you expect. So there is a general expectation by people around the world that these chatbots are stupid. And until the moment that changes, many of the customer-facing things, it's about to fail.
So user behavior, basically, we don't know how to use it.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that just underestimating what does it take from that first demo or shiny things until a product that is actually exactly checkmarks all the requirements that you're having. You mentioned cost could be an element, when you want to go to a scale, okay, I cannot use Gemini Ultra or GPT-4 this many number of times, so now I need to have a right orchestration between different sizes of models. It could be that the compliance, as I mentioned, that okay, certain things is not being respected. How do I make sure that in 100% of the time when a transaction is happening, the value is exactly that, and this brain is not changing? What do I put in model? What do I put outside of the model? How do I connect to all the backends and systems which internally I have? How do I make sure that this from the security point of view, this is fine? Who has the right access to what? So all of those things can actually be super complex, and again, that's where companies like us are helping. But even with our help, sometimes those things can be quite time consuming.
That's where our company comes in, by the way. But
I was going to build on that. I fully agree. And sort of three points building on what we've talked about, including linking back to the comments before. I think, first of all, unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember this. In my mind, this is the biggest revolution or biggest disruption and transformation in how humans and computers interact since, I think it was May 1993 when the Mosaic browser was launched. You might say June 2007 when the iPhone came out. I think it's bigger than that. This is it's done. Like, humans will demand to interact with computers through language, like we are right now. We're using language, and now that ChatGPT came out, I loved your thought. In the old days, you had to explain for an hour what this stuff is. Then after November 30th, you could save an hour in every meeting because they already get it, and now they're saying, how do we deploy this? So I think the expectation of that interface is going to be there. Whether you're an internal user, you want to interact with SAP, like with language, you want to interact with your service provider, like Orange, with language. And so I think that's going to that is going to fundamentally change. But just like 1993, for those who remember that, it took a while until the user behavior changed. To your point, at the beginning, some companies felt they'd hire someone like a Razorfish, make an HTML site, put a photo of their CEO and her phone number underneath, and we're digital now. Of course, that wasn't the fact. So it's going to take time to sort of have that go through, but that's inevitable. The second point is I like to, because it's tough to know where we're talking about and so on. I like to orient around a sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have a professor here, so I'm going to go back to some academic elements as my inner consultant.
Not only one.
Not only one, yeah. But I think the foundational, sort of the widest layer are going to be the mass market use cases that billions of us will use multiple times a day, if not hour. And those will be extremely well served by Google, by Microsoft, maybe by Apple. Like autocomplete, that's AI, that's Gen AI. It's been part of Google Docs or Gmail for a long time. Spell check, translate, all of these things. Google, Microsoft are going to build this into their productivity suites or coding, like some of the things that everyone uses, these productivity tools, we will all use them. And maybe it's $20 more per person, 100 million users, and my old boss, Ruth, has 24 billion of incremental revenue. So you can see how that's going to be amazing for those companies and for all of us. The next layer up, I think it's going to be tough for some of the startups that have built on top of GPT-3 or 4 or Google or us or whatever, because a lot of this is going to be built into existing productivity applications. Then you've got the middle layer, which is all of the enterprise SaaS companies who are in 400,000 enterprises or whatever it is. SAP, Oracle, Bloomberg, Experian, go on and on. They're not going anywhere. They're just part of the lifeblood of enterprises. And that's why you hear, what did you say, 100 and something use cases. This is just going to be built into what those companies do. And then at the top of that, the most sophisticated enterprises will develop their own proprietary LLM capabilities, powered by Cohere is our aspiration for a subset of them, to create strategically differentiating capabilities. Just like today, a bank does not go to Excel to price loans. They have their own proprietary capabilities based on their data, based on their information, based on their expertise. And now they're going to be able to do that in a much more advanced way by harnessing this technology in their data environment, with their data, keeping it secure, with their human feedback, creating capabilities for them. And so I think it's important to orient around those three tiers, because if you think here doing something like, how am I going to be better at doing my HR processes? I don't think you have to think too much about it, because if you're using SAP, SAP is going to help you. How do we get better at doing our productivity of our coders? Google's going to be helping you with that. So I think that is the good way to think about it. And the third point, very quickly, is what's holding back. I agree with everything that you said before. A lot of times companies spend a lot of money on my old friends and others like it. Let's do a strategy project around prioritizing use cases, and they spend 6 months in workshops, and it's like, stop. Just pick something. Pick something and make it not the most valuable use case, because those ones also have the highest risk. You could go on the, you can be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or the FT or the FAZ or whatever it is. We have a huge retailer who.
But let me challenge you right there, because I totally get this Maslow pyramid, but at the same time we're realizing that some of this technology is also fundamentally threatening or changing business models quite fundamentally. So there seems to me still an element of strategic choice and let's say selection to kind of think, how is this impacting my business model in a more deliberate way than, let's say, okay, I'm just going to throw a dart and I'll do this.
Absolutely
right,
true.
to kind of understand that dynamic. So I think, I like your Maslow pyramid, but I think at the top of that, if you want to stay competitive, you still have to think about that.
100%. My point is that people are sort of like all over the place. Say, well, understand what your service providers are doing and then focus on what you're saying. I think the point is, though, what's holding people back? There's a lot of yucky stuff that doesn't make the front page of the paper. Data access rights, connecting data sources, getting the CISO, and your GC and your head of legal comfortable with what you're doing. All sorts of privacy, regulation, GDPR. That's all this yucky stuff. That's the yucky stuff that actually is the difference between value and no value. A POC is easy. And that's why what we're suggesting is pick something. We had a big retailer who saw our own internal tools that are linked to all of our data sources. We've deprecated onboarding. We don't do onboarding at Cohere because we have Coral, and now it's called Pearl, that you just say, what's the Wi-Fi password of the Toronto office? Where should I stay? And it gives you the hotels where we have corporate rates. It's, how should I dial up temperature on my next model run? Temperature is variability, not heat if you're an MLE. It goes into our Notion, Slack, email, whatever, and pulls that data out. And so we don't use onboarding. So this huge retailer said, I want to do that. Not because it's going to change the company, but because it's something that's very visible. Regular users will be extremely excited to use this. It's not going to get on the front page of the paper if you give the wrong password. And it forces them to do this, all the yucky stuff, to make this work. And then once you've done the yucky stuff and you're showing impact, even just in people saying, oh my God, this made my life so much better, then the next one that you do and the one after and the one after that maybe become more challenging, more sensitive data sources, you can easily build on that, as opposed to the company that's still spending time prioritizing, doing 73 POCs, and then trying to figure out, okay, at some point, let's try and go to production. So I agreed with you on the things holding back.
So how, maybe I can make the,
Yeah.
You want to jump in, but I was also curious about how you chose the use cases, which ones you thought were useful, and how did you, because you were nodding quite heavily, so I was thinking about how was your process?
We do have quite good insights of which capabilities of our software, which features, which areas are used often, and where is a lot of value captured. And that is, of course, how we prioritize. But I do agree that it doesn't help to run a strategy project for a year or half a year to then start working. And you asked what is holding us back, what's working faster, what's working slower. Everything text related, and large language models are very capable there, works easier and faster, because there we can take models that are available and then either fine-tune or have RAG-based approaches, or use them just with prompt engineering. Especially for POCs, that's good enough. For production, oftentimes you need to do a bit more. You need to give a lot of guardrails. I saw prompts. you do that for a living as well. They're pages and pages, like give instructions to a 5-year-old. What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Oh, don't add a 0 there. Don't do this. So it's very fine granular, but that still works relatively fast. What we also do have as an ERP system is a lot of tabular data. And there actually we do see, and of course that it's challenging with large language models to tap into tabular data, because like an ERP system, imagine a 200,000 or 300,000 Excel files linked to each other, some having hundreds of columns, and then depending on customer size, billions of rows, and that needs to make sense. So that's basically the data structure of an ERP system. And then depending on some things here, you need to run the business process a little different there, because then in the chemical industry or healthcare industry, you have certain rules that need to be fulfilled. So here's tabular data. That's also the only area where we built an own foundation model, because so far we didn't see anything that we could just apply. We apply the same principles and using the same tools, so that's very helpful. But there we needed to do something else, and that of course takes much, much longer than taking a model and within a day you have a POC, and then it takes, let's say, a month or so to get a model, and then maybe it's another month checking all the boxes, and then you actually have that live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I'm hearing basically is I think the challenges, the yucky stuff, I would say you all sort of agree on this. I kind of heard that there is an element of strategy, but maybe what I heard was basically don't take too long doing that. Find some simple criteria, because I think it's fair. Organizations are at different maturity stages, so it's also maybe not so easy and visible.
Don't spend time on those layers where
other people are already going to do it. Exactly.
Building the stuff.
Don't build something that will be a product.
Focus on your business.
Focus on your business. I could not echo this more. I would like to, because we're very short of time, does anybody have a pressing question? One? Another one? I'm just going to do one round of question. 1, 2, no, and 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then we can take those questions. I have a final question at the end. Do we have a mic for the audience? I can give you the box. Sorry, the box.
The box, thank you. I'm a cyber guy, ran all the cyber centers for the US government, Intel, military, do serious stuff. This stuff is as open as the iPhone in 2007. So when Steve showed that wonderful device, you could rootkit it. I mean, it was wide open. These models are wide open. The best security analysts are already finding that all of the same hacks we can do on networks and software, we can do on the LLMs, just even through the language interface. How's that going to get tightened up? What does that roadmap look like?
Oh, great question. Number 2, you had a question?
This question is especially for Jürgen. What is your SAP's vision for the collaboration with Aleph Alpha?
Okay, and then the third one was, I think, over there. Oh, no, it was you. Sorry. The gentleman with the beard.
All right, thanks, guys. From Toronto, Canada. Question is, in terms of making this real, how can we make this real for a profession like a doctor and like a teacher? I was in a very recent discussion myself, and it was like a dinner discussion, and one of the guests was a teacher, and she was like, you know what, this chat GPT stuff scares me, because as a teacher, I could very well, 1, lose my job. That's her frame of mind right now. And then 2, for the students, either they're gonna plagiarize everything off this, GPT thing, or they're gonna basically learn how to use it, right? So really the heart of my question is, how can we add these professionals as part of the co-creative process, right? I find whether you're a proprietary, like Google Palm, or whether you're open source, how can you co-collaborate and co-create so that you actually have other professionals at the table?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Short answers.
Short answers. Then I just pick one aspect of your question on the teacher. I heard that from Stanford, and I liked how they did it. They embraced the change and said, hey, dear students, this is your task. You have a homework, write an article, write a paper. Explicitly do use ChatGPT and then reflect over it. So you do not just hand in the article, you hand in a piece of paper. What did work well? Where did it help? Where did it not help? And then actually you have a discourse about that. So that was how they embraced it, because it will not go away. I mean, yes, I do use my calculator here. Yes, still we want to learn math, but it will not go away. And these technologies will not go away. So let's embrace them. Just a short answer. There's many more dimensions to it, but just one.
Yeah, I can add to that. I agree with that. It's the same as my mother-in-law was a teacher, and in Toronto, six in the house, and it's just like when the internet came out, when Google came out. I couldn't believe that kids are allowed to Google stuff, with laptops in the classroom. But on the medical one, I think it's a great one. So we have a close relationship with Oracle. They're building us into pretty much everything they're doing. One of the things that Larry has talked very publicly about, Larry Ellison, is the medical field. It's very close to his heart. He spent 20-30 billion on Cerner. And one of the things that one of the early POCs that they developed on our technology, doctors, clinicians, nurses spend about 3.5 hours a day on patient discharge forms, on patient notes, and so on. 3.5 hours. They believe through the POC they can reduce that to 20 minutes. So you imagine for all of those professionals, it's not replacing them. It just means you've got 3 hours more to operate on patients, to diagnose, to really think about it, to sleep, to train yourself, whatever it is.
Can I add, just because this is the user level and not the co-creation level?
On co-creation, we have a lot of it's about data. A lot of it's human data. So you can scrape the internet. Okay, we've done that. But really, the advances now are in the instruction tuned. If you say here are 10 examples of a summary of a 10K in JSON format, you feed it in, the model learns because humans created that much more valuable, much more expensive data. We have hundreds of data annotators. There are other companies, Scale AI and Appen and Invisible and so on that we all use to put data in. That includes, we have doctors, we have teachers. If you want to know how to do, be good at biochemistry, you need to have biochemists. You have lawyers to be good at legal. So we do that co-creation so that the models are actually learning from professionals, from humans. And the amazing thing is, sort of we're in Davos, is that all that expertise that those amazing teachers and doctors and mathematicians have then can benefit those who don't have a double PhD from Yale. And it actually flattens the curve of those who maybe have the deepest training and education to those who don't, which I think could be unbelievably powerful to sort of just, close the skills gap.
Can you add to this, Behshad?
I think I fully agree on the administrative part, which is a shorter term. I do believe actually, and we actually just last week published a work from Google called AMY. This is about diagnosis, and we actually see that AMY is diagnoses complex cases better than doctors. So I do believe actually LLMs and these types of applications will become part of diagnosis. Obviously, in medical area, because of all of the consequences and regulation, this is a complex and longer term, potentially not tomorrow, not next month, but given the not availability of doctors everywhere, this has lots of good to come with. Certainly, doctors are helping us. We have lots of medical doctors in the team which did work on AMY and MedPalm too, which is the best medical LLM models in the world now. There are lots of doctors also in that team. But actually, that's if someone asks me what's the most exciting thing in the next 5-10 years, I do like the ultimate impact of this AI in the healthcare side. On the education side, just
I would
super
really
quickly,
like
and
his security side. I think
we
that's
get back
super
to
relevant.
security. Just one 10 seconds. I think there's also all the other angles, all the material creations, personalized, education. There's lots of things of education which can change with thanks to the Gen AI. Schools will take long time until they update their, really, because this is a, government, ministers and so on. But I think online education is and tutors and everything like that will be, moving very fast with LLMs.
Security aspect, no?
Security aspect.
Please.
So as always in security, a multi-layered approach. And I mean, you also, that we don't deploy into the public cloud and then like the White House or military or agencies are using that. So there's different deployment modes where with IL4, IL5, for example, the business technology platform will be available. There's every time another layer of security. And then, of course,
we're not seeing it yet.
Yeah, and then of course that's why there will be this different layer of security. And then of course it's also always the question, how do you use this? Because in the end, we always say we are not outsourcing accountability to those models. And then depending on use case, how critical it is if it's of course the US Army logistics, very critical, versus if it's the job posting for the public US Army website, less critical. And so therefore, it's a multi-layered answer there as well. And then, of course, I'm pretty sure within the models, there will also more work will happen on those. And like on the iPhone, you have different layers of the technology stack.
I think it's also important to, again, just like the hierarchy to help orient, is it's very important to unconflate something that's conflated. There are consumer models and there are enterprise models. And a lot of people think like, oh, gee, someone was saying that our models train on LinkedIn posts, like models like OpenAI and Cohere. It's like we don't have a consumer chatbot. We just literally don't have that. And so consumer models, yes, there are issues. Although I think Google, Microsoft, and others obviously are extremely focused on cyber and so on. Enterprise models are a bit different, and that's one of the reasons why we focus on private deployment. And so when we deploy our models in a company's environment, it is just as secure or insecure as the rest of what they do. And SAP doesn't play. Google obviously does both. And so one of our investors in our last round was SentinelOne because they really liked our focus on security, including protecting model weights and so on, but also in terms of if you have your own environment that's safe, we deploy inside that, and so it's just as safe as it was.
The only thing I would add is that there are also lots of efforts on red teaming and trying to jailbreak, and all of our companies and other big players have teams that trying to reduce the chances of this is a little bit like for past 25 years Google has been fighting with spammers who try to spam the web search. There's new techniques and we try to come up prevent that, and it's the same game will continue also on the models.
Right now.
It's true.
Fantastic. I know this discussion. I love this. We could be discussing for another 3 days. We're also here for another 3 days. So
There was an Aleph Alpha question.
There's a question for Jürgen on Aleph Alpha.
Aleph Alpha question.
Aleph Alpha question, very quickly. What's your strategy with Aleph Alpha?
We can take it offline, but there are qualities in the Aleph Alpha model that are potentially unique. And then there's use cases that need these qualities. And that's where we see this thriving.
Fantastic. So I hope you all took something about implementing, about hopefully achieving impact. Thank you very much to all the panelists. We still have a program at AI House for the next few days. We also have private roundtables focusing on some specific industries, actually trying to achieve impact. So check out the program, come back, and give a big applause to our fabulous panelists.